Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Coach's Corner on the Bridging Impact podcast with myself, Coach Furtado, where we pass wisdom to the next generation of youth sports parents and youth sports coaches. I'm thrilled to bring to you today. I'm going to talk about teaching the process, right? We hear so much about trusting the process, and a big thing that Bridging Impact, we're really trying to pass wisdom to coaches and parents to pass wisdom to their kids, because we want to impact the next generation, because the next generation is our community leaders. They are the people that are going to be making decisions, and we have to equip them and empower them to make sure that they're ready. And sports is a powerful tool to do that. So when we think about trusting the process, right? Like, I know I mentioned social media quite a bit because that's what our world revolves around now. That's what so many young athletes compare themselves onto, whether they're on actual social media like TikTok or Instagram, or they're a little bit younger and they're just so into YouTube. Because one of the things that I know, I was growing up with the internet, but the quickness of access to information now it's insane, like, for lack of a better word. And the reason that quickness of information is, it's a blessing, right? Because you can look up and Google anything, you can get any answers you want at the same time. But because you get any answers you want at the same time, you think you should have all the answers. You think you should be at the top of your craft because you have the access to see so many other people at the top of their craft. But, becoming a great shooter, and I'll use being a great shooter in basketball as an example in this podcast episode, takes a lot of time, right? It takes a lot of time, and it's more than just comparing yourself to someone on the internet. And so I want to talk about 5 different ways that we can teach the process to our young athletes, and we can teach it to ourselves. Because I'm going to be honest, I as a person who loves, I put in a lot of work. I put in a lot of effort into my craft, but at the same time, I still sometimes want to rush results. I want to get places faster. And, I sometimes have to ask myself why I want to do that, right? But this episode's not about that. I want to be at 1,000 YouTube subscribers. I want to be at 1,000 listeners on the podcast. I want Bridging Impact Basketball to be my full-time income, right? But that's just not realistic. And for today, right? Those things will happen. I believe in those things, that they will happen, but not right now. So you have to trust the process and win the day by day. And so, without saying win the day, I actually have 5 other tips that will be very helpful for obviously yourself. But what's the best way of learning something? Teaching it. So I'm going to share 5 tips. And number 1 is going to be modeling the process, right? You have to model what the process looks like. It may not be necessarily, for shooting, so to speak, but you have to model the process for your athletes, for your team, because if they have to be able to see the process in person, right? You can look at videos, which are going to be some tools that I share a little bit later, but modeling the process is number 1. So you have to show them what a great shooting workout looks like. You have to ask them questions. When you go through shooting slumps, should you stop at the process? No. We're going to analyze, and we're going to look at our mindset, right? And it's a constant work in progress. But the only way that you stop the process is if you stop, right? And so modeling what the process looks like day in and day out for your team, and whatever skill it is going to be incredibly important. And you can share them about your process, right? For me, they're going to connect and relate to, hey, I'm on YouTube. I started with 20 something subscribers this year, maybe even less, and now I'm at 80, right? That is actually a 4x increase. So I just trust the process, and I know, a 4x increase will just keep going up. And so that's number 1, is modeling the process. Number 2 is sharing stories. And I think this is a powerful one that, kind of segues into what I'm talking about last time, about stories around what I'm doing right now, stories as the work that I woke up at 5 a.m. just to make the team, right? It takes a lot of sacrifice to be good at a craft. Unless you're really naturally athletic, naturally good at a skill, it takes a lot of time and effort to be really, really good at a skill. And that's one of the things that stories have the power to highlight, right? And it's sharing stories about Steph Curry, about Giannis, and people that have made it that they look up to. Your teammates that have gone and played professional sports, and just sharing that so they can connect and relate to that message. Number 3 is going to be relatable content, and it goes exactly with my last point. So what is the most relatable content? Videos. So this week I shared videos on my TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts about Giannis sharing that to be successful in the NBA, it's not all about skill. It's about working on your craft. And so sending that video into a group message with your team will help them relate in that and connect the dots, because that relatable content, that's storytelling in a video form, right? Because they understand videos so well. I do believe it's really important to model the process in person, but what happens when you're not in practice and you want to share something with them? And sometimes in practice, like, things just go like that, and you can give them little tidbits here and there. You can have, because Steph Curry put hours and hours into his craft, and he has plenty of videos talking about that. So those are some things that you can share, having that relatable content. And number 4 is tracking. Tracking is a really, really important tool when it comes to progress and process, right? So it's one of the things I learned this weekend when I went to a PGC shooting clinic, is that you need to track your makes and takes every time that you go and work out. And so why is that important? It's because if I start shooting here in October and I start doing some shooting workouts, I'm hoping that by January, February, I start making more. And if I track, I can be able to see easier. I mean, in general, you may have an idea, but there's often a lot of times, and I know this for sure for me, myself, who's not a big data person, that we can tell ourselves stories that we are actually shooting better, but we may only be shooting the exact same or barely better. But being able to track our progress gives us results. And, there are going to be those months, those 2 months where you dip. It's kind of like the stock market. If you continue to put in great work, right, and it's not just, putting in slow reps, really putting in intentional reps, you should be getting better every time. Otherwise, maybe that skill or sport is not cut out for you, or maybe you're not practicing correct and you need to shift something. That data is going to be able to give you feedback for the process to be more successful. And the final one, which is one of my favorite ones, is reflect. And give space for your athletes to reflect, right? Ask them, in the past 3 months, what skills have you got better at? In the past 3 months, what are you proud of? I know we had a podcast episode, and that's why you got to subscribe, because what are you proud of is a really important question to ask to your teammates. But with that being said, having them reflect, and it being internal is a way that they can start understanding the process and recognizing how much progress they have made in 3 to 6 months to a year. What kind of a player were you last year? Now, where do you want to go, right? Reflect on this past year and start writing down what are the things that you still want to continue to improve on. What are things you maybe didn't improve on as much? Giving them those skills to internally understand and set those goals, because we want to, as coaches, we want to develop intrinsic motivation. And there's ways to do, extrinsic motivation has its place as well. Don't get me wrong. It's important, but one of the tools that is going to stick with you for the rest of your life once you finish playing sports is intrinsic motivation. And so the more we can develop that while they're athletes, while they're younger, the more successful they are going to be in life, because in life you're kind of on your own a lot of times. You got to figure out how to, motivate yourself. And so those are some of the skills that you want to pass on. And you can do that through teaching the process and asking questions and developing that intrinsic motivation. So to wrap up and highlight the 5 points, it's number 1, model the process. Number 2, use stories. Number 3, use those stories through relatable content like videos, maybe even pictures, but a lot of videos. Number 4, tracking the process. And number 5, reflect. So I'd love to hear from you. What other, these are just my ideas and thoughts. It's not the end all be all. I'd love to hear from you. What are other ways that you can teach the process to athletes and teach the process to yourself? Because we're all a work in progress, and we're all trying to, become the best versions of ourselves, of course. So thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe wherever you are. This is how we grow. Share it with a friend. We are trying to bridge as much impact as we can to the next generation of athletes, because athletes have a unique opportunity to really develop themselves individually, but also learn so many great team skills. So I appreciate you. I appreciate the work you're doing. And if you want some free stickers, hit me up. I'll send a thank you card for being a listener. Some free stickers. I want to keep, growing the show. We're bringing people on. We're building out basketball leadership program in Los Angeles. So stay tuned for more. We got merch on the website, and I really do appreciate y'all and any feedback. If I can be a better content creator, I want to be a better content creator. So please let me know. I've had some really wonderful people like Cheryl in the YouTube comments give me some feedback. Hey, coach, what in the world are you doing, man? You're over here, you're over there, you're over here. So I started to, kind of make some notes for myself to try and be sequential in terms of my YouTube channel, my YouTube skills. And I'm just trying to get better. It's a process for me as well. So I appreciate y'all. Much love. Have a wonderful weekend. Coach Furtado out.